it. But for me, Next Generation, obviously, I've talked about it a lot. Roger Lays Jr. and his company, Urban Archipelago Films, was hired to do all of the special features for Star Trek The Next Generation and Star Trek Enterprise. And we happened to be working in the same, we worked at Landmark Entertainment. He was doing a documentary about Mark Scott Zachary called The Table, with Anna Bredo, who was working at CBS. They were doing it together. And then I was editing a film that's still sitting on a shelf that I think is quite good called My 11th, which is about a serial killer. And so we would say hi to each other every day. And then Roger knew who I was, and he got the job. And then we spent 3 years of our lives, all we did was make Star Trek documentaries for CBS. And we were the only Star Trek production. Paramount was making the J.J. Abrams movies, but during that time, we were the only CBS Star Trek production going. And even though they were, I mean, obviously the Next Generation was the entire restoration of Next Generation was one of the most enormous undertakings really in television history. Subsequent to Star Trek The Next Generation, The X-Files was restored. But a lot of the what made it so hard was a lot of these shows, especially Star Trek, to cut costs, even though they shot all the models and they did all their special effects, they shot them on film. They were composited, and the show was finished on NTSC videotape. And that's standard definition videotape. And the effects, they would literally daisy chain 10, sometimes 10 VTRs together, and they would send a signal through and combine all the shots onto one piece of tape, which is why space never really looked black and you could never see very many stars. But with the restoration that CBS undertook at the behest of Big Daddy Ken Ross was in charge of home video. He was a legend in the home video world. He, along with Andre Blay had started Magnetic Video, which was the first really big video company that later became 20th Century Fox Films. But Ken Ross worked for Magnetic Video. I always kind of thought of him as the Tony Soprano of network executives, because he was a New Yorker. He was big, he was bold, he was brash, he didn't take any shit, and he could really pretty much make anything happen. And he really went out on a limb and got all the money that it needed. It was not cheap to do that restoration because they went back into the negative, and which is the right way to do it. Don't tell me about AI upscaling. It's a bunch of bullshit. What you want to do is you want to go back into the negative and get the best image quality you could, and Ken Ross made that happen. And at the time, Next Generation was remastered in 2K, because we're talking about it started in 2011 and went 2012, 2013, 2014, and all 178 episodes of Next Gen were remastered. And we did all of the documentaries. So I got to sit down and interview most of the cast and the major crew of Next Gen. And it was amazing. And I put up on my YouTube channel, and I think I did it on Twitter, one of my favorite things was when we were doing the season 2 set. It was the 25th anniversary of Star Trek The Next Generation, and there was a 25th Star Trek The Next Generation cast reunion in Calgary, in Canada. And there's a big event there, a big pop culture expo, and they were up there, and I had suggested to Ken, I said, I talked to Roger about this, and I said to Ken, there's a 25th anniversary reunion, and wouldn't it be great? We were going to get to sit down and interview each cast member. We had 2 sessions of 2 hours apiece, so I got to sit down and interview the entire cast, beginning with Patrick Stewart, for 2 2-hour sessions, so 4 hours total, and the results of those interviews would be spread out all over all 7 seasons of our discs. And so, since it was my idea, I said, we should get like a celebrity guest host to host this reunion. Ken Ross looks at me and goes, "You're doing it." And this was before I was really comfortable being on camera like I am now. Am I? But so I sat down with the entire cast and ran this roundtable discussion. The thing was, I hadn't met them yet. I hadn't sat down individually and interviewed them. But you can see the results of that on the season 2 Blu-rays. And if you buy the Picard set that has all 3 seasons of the new Picard show, they have all the Next Generation movies, and they have all 7 seasons of the series with all of our documentaries. The only thing it doesn't have is, in addition to the 7 seasons that we had done, we also did 5 extra discs where we took 2-parters and released them as movie-only versions. So you could get Best of Both Worlds, you could get Redemption, you could get Unification, you could get Chain of Command, and you could get All Good Things as movie only versions, and we did more special features for those. So those more special features were not included in the box set because they weren't in the masters. But you can find those single discs and there's some good stuff. I did a great interview with Ronnie Cox, who played Edward Jellicoe, that's on the Chain of Command disc. Anyway, so I got to sit down with the entire cast and crew of Next Generation and interview them, host a roundtable discussion. This was back in, as I said, 2012 for the 25th reunion. And I was totally nervous, but I did post. Somebody posted it. If I post it on YouTube, it gets taken down right away. But somebody else had posted it, so you can find it on my social media. I put it up yesterday. I've put it up before in the past. But if you want, you can sit down and watch the Bobster here, talking about myself in the third person, doing an interview with the entire cast, the main cast, and of course, Wesley Crusher, Will Wheaton. And it's a lot of fun. Basically, I just kind of prompted them and prodded them, got them going, and I stayed out of the way. I think that's always the best thing to do, especially when you get people like that together. I don't need to insert myself. Nobody wants to hear me. So I would throw out some questions and then let them riff. But it was really cool, and we shot it like a network special, and very proud of that. So thank you, Ken Ross, for allowing us to do that, and thank you, Roger Lay Jr., and Mike and Denise Akuda, who oversaw the whole thing.